Imagine this. You come back to your senses in an intensive care unit, unable to move, and you hear your own wife whispering on the phone. By next week, everything will be ours, as long as he doesn't wake up too soon. What would you do? I pretended to be dead, and that saved my life. I opened my eyes because of the sharp smell of antiseptic and the strange beeping somewhere nearby. A white ceiling, harsh lamps, the steady hum of machines. My throat was dry, and my body felt heavy, like it was filled with lead. It took me a while to realize where I was, and then I noticed the IV, crystal drops sliding into my vein with mechanical precision. ICU. I was alive. Or wait. Just beyond the wall, very close, I heard a voice whispering. I froze, not moving, just listening. Yes, he's still in a coma. No, he won't wake up. The doctor said there's almost no chance. The voice was painfully familiar. It was my wife. Cold sweat ran down my back. Why did her tone sound happy? Well, that's it then. We can file the papers, she chuckled. By next week, everything will be ours. Ours? What exactly did she mean by ours? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe steadily. Panic swelled in waves, but I didn't let myself twitch. I realized that if I made a sound, if she saw that I was alive, then what? If she was telling the truth, my return definitely wouldn't make her happy. The only thing is, he mustn't wake up too soon, she hissed and hung up the phone. My insides turned to ice. My wife was waiting for my death, and I lay here, strapped to machines, barely able to move a finger. I shut my eyes again, making sure I looked unconscious. If she came inside, I couldn't give myself away. The door creaked. Her heels clicked softly on the floor. She came closer. I heard her sigh with relief and whisper, "Just sleep, sleep. It'll all be over soon." I clenched my teeth so hard I thought they'd crack, just to keep from choking on my own rage. Every word cut deeper than the wounds on my body. Who was this woman? The person I'd lived with for 10 years? The one I'd built a house with, planned children with. She left, and I lay there staring at the white ceiling, feeling fear like I'd never known before. But fear quickly turned into something else. Anger. I had to learn the truth, and to do that I had to stay dead. That's when my game began. When nurses came, I showed no reactions, not to light, not to sound. Inside, though, I was listening, analyzing, remembering every detail. Who could she have called? What did she mean by ours? What exactly were they going to file? My life? My business? Our house? Within a few days, I learned to open my eyes a little when no one was around, to practice moving my fingers, clenching and unclenching my fist. The doctors told my wife there was no improvement. I heard her replies, short, cold. No tears, no hand on mine. It was as if she were waiting for it all to be over. One day, she didn't come alone. She brought someone with her. A man's voice, deep, low. "So how much longer is he going to be lying here?" he asked, irritated. The doctor said not long, and if not, we can always speed things up, she answered. Speed things up? I nearly twitched in fury. They were discussing my death the way other people might discuss buying new furniture. But now I knew for sure. She wasn't alone. And whatever they were planning, I didn't have much time left. Days passed. I learned to listen without betraying that I was awake. It turned out to be easier than I'd imagined. Doctors and nurses had grown used to my coma and spoke freely in my presence. Every sound became a signal, every word a clue. One afternoon, Nurse Helen said to a colleague, quietly, "Funny, wives usually camp out here at the bedside. This one only drops in for 5 minutes, and she never puts her phone down. I agreed silently. Emily came every day, but not to be with me, more like to check whether I'd come back. Each visit gave me another piece of the puzzle. Once, she arrived with that man. I could barely make out his shape through the curtain. His voice was deep and rough. "How much longer will he be lying there?" he asked, impatient. "The doctors said not long. If anything, we can speed things up," she replied. Speed things up? The phrase made my blood run cold. They were discussing my death as if it were a schedule. Now I was certain she wasn't alone. Whatever they were planning, my time was short. From then on, I trained to move without being noticed. I learned to open my eyes a fraction when no one watched, to flex my fingers and toes in tiny increments. Little victories gave me strength. I practiced rolling my wrist under the covers, lifting a knee inch by inch. It took everything I had. Their conversations grew cruder. They spoke of a new life, of how money would be spent, what they would buy. They did not whisper, confident I couldn't hear. "We'll buy that seaside house," Emily said once. "And finally be together," the man added. So she had a lover. I was an obstacle. Thoughts tumbled through my head without mercy. If I woke now, they might try to finish the job. I had to pick a moment when I could not only open my eyes, but speak and ask for help, and I had to gather as much evidence as possible. One night, a door opened quietly. I held my breath, feigning a deeper slumber. Someone came close to my bed. A cold metal touch brushed my neck, a click, like a camera shutter. A whisper followed. "Tomorrow it will be over. In the morning I'll sign the papers, and then I'll come back." They were planning something for the morning. My heart hammered so loud I feared they might hear. Maybe they intended to disconnect my machines. Maybe a drug would be slipped into my drip. I did not know, but I knew I could not wait. Morning came. I heard a familiar doctor's voice, the shuffle of staff, then Emily's footsteps. She spoke on the phone as she approached. "Yes, today, midday. Everything's ready. Then we celebrate." I gathered every scrap of strength and clenched my fist. A small movement, barely a twitch, but it was enough. The nurse noticed. She froze, then ran for help. Emily stepped out into the corridor and never saw them run in. Doctors flooded the room and began checking my reflexes. I opened my eyes a little, enough to let them know I was returning. They smiled, but I made a tiny gesture to keep quiet. One nurse understood and nodded. From that moment, I was on the edge for everyone, a patient with minimal chances for recovery. For the staff, I needed time. For Emily, I was still a semi-corpse. But that morning, everything had to be decided, and I had to expose her. I knew I only had one real chance. If I woke too early, she'd know I'd heard everything. If I woke too late, they might simply switch me off. All night I stayed awake, practicing breathing, flexing my fingers, training my voice. With each tiny victory, I felt control returning. When she opened the door the next morning, Emily moved as if she'd rehearsed the moment. Calm, collected, a carrier bag in her hand. Her fingers closed around something small and glassy. An ampule glinted in the light. "Sweetheart, forgive me. This will be better for us both," she whispered as she neared the IV. My body screamed to move. I lunged, throwing an arm toward the nurse call button. The alarm screamed. The door flew open. Nurse Helen and a security guard rushed into the room. Emily froze, ampule still in her palm. "This isn't what you think," she cried. But the nurse had already seized the vial and read the label. Her face drained of color. "It's a powerful sedative. In that dose?" Emily bolted for the corridor, but the guard grabbed her arm. I managed to squeeze out a single word. "Caught." For the first time since waking, I allowed myself a smile. My act, my pretending to be dead, had worked. But this was only the beginning. There were questions to answer. Who was the man? What papers had been signed? How deep did the betrayal go? They led Emily away. I lay back, the white ceiling spinning. My heart was still racing and my limbs trembled, but anger gave me fuel. Within half an hour, a detective arrived with Nurse Helen. A doctor came too. "We need to record your statement," the detective said. "Can you talk?" My voice was hoarse, but the words came. "She tried to kill me. Not once. She's not alone." I told them everything. The whispered calls, the man at my bedside, the talk of dividing assets after the funeral. Helen confirmed she had heard parts of those conversations. "We'll check the cameras and phone records. Do you know the man?" I shook my head. Only his voice, low, rough. He talked about splitting things in half. They took my account seriously, although the detective warned me to be careful. "If their accomplices find out you're awake, they might try to finish what they started," he said. That only made me more determined. I wanted the whole truth. The next day, I was allowed to sit up. My body protested, but the progress felt miraculous. Short visits were authorized, and then I saw her, Emily, in the corridor, under guard. She glanced at me with a thin, mocking smile. "Well then, hero, back on your feet? The papers are signed. It's all legal. You can't change what's done." I clenched my fist. "We'll see," I answered. Her smile faltered. "You can't prove anything," she scoffed. "When you leave here, your business will be gone." At that moment, the whole picture snapped into place. Not just a house, not just money, a company we had built together over 10 years. I remembered she urged me to sign a power of attorney, just in case. I had signed it. Now, suddenly, everything seemed to be hers. I demanded the police track down the documents I'd signed in recent months. With trembling hands, I began to write names, dates, snippets of overheard conversation, making my notes a dry record I could use. A few days later, the detective called with news. "There's footage of your wife and a man at the notary's office. They executed a power of attorney and a will. The notary says you didn't come in." My stomach dropped. My signature had been forged. I felt my hands go numb with rage. They hadn't merely plotted to kill me, they had erased me from my life. That evening, I heard Emily shouting in the corridor, "I didn't forge anything. He signed everything himself." Officers escorted her away, but the picture in my head was clear. Emily, the lover, forged papers, plans to speed things up. Only one question remained. Who was the man? The answer came faster than I expected. The detective showed me a photo. "Do you recognize him?" he asked. It was Daniel, my business partner, the man I trusted like a brother. My chest tightened. All this time they had been in league. All this time I had been betrayed by my family and by my closest friend. The detective was blunt. "He's been on the run. We're looking for him." I closed my eyes and took a long breath. I had survived. I would make them pay. 2 days later, Daniel was arrested in a rented townhouse outside the city. I insisted on attending the interrogation. He walked into the room with false confidence, like a man who had already won. When he saw me, he smirked. "Alive? That's unexpected," he drawled. "Disappointed?" I asked, staring him down. "You lost anyway. The company is mine now. She's mine." He nodded toward the holding room where Emily sat, cuffed. My hands balled into fists, but I controlled myself. "You tried to kill me," I said calmly. He laughed. "You think anyone will feel sorry for you? It's legal. It's done." A detective beside him cut in.
Not exactly. Forensic analysis shows the signatures were forged. The notary has confirmed you weren't present. You're both under suspicion for fraud and attempted murder. Daniel's smile faded. You set us up, he spat. No, I said softly. You set yourselves up. I just survived. Emily and Daniel were charged. As they were let out, Emily spat at me. You'll have nothing left. You'll end up alone. I watched them go. She was right about one thing. My life was a ruin compared to what it had been. But I was alive. That was everything. A month later, I was discharged. The company was in turmoil, but loyal employees rallied. With legal help and perseverance, we clawed some control back through the courts. The process was brutal and long, but day by day, I rebuilt. Sometimes at night, the phrase still haunted me. Don't let him wake up too soon. I would walk to the bathroom, stare at my reflection, and remind myself what I had done. I woke up. I survived. I refused to let them win. Now I live differently, without them, without betrayal, but with the quiet knowledge that I was given a second life, and this time I would not waste it.